Go ahead, you speak. Hi, everyone online. So, yeah, I heard I'll be heading back to Taiwan, and I'll be arriving Wednesday night since I'm in Singapore right now. This time, I have to transfer in Singapore, so the flight will take over 20 hours. With a flight that long, I'll be arriving Wednesday night. So, does that mean I'm going straight back to work? I'm thinking, maybe, that could be it, right? Maybe that's what's happening, right? Alright, so what is this video about? This video is following up on the war between Iran and Israel. No one dares to officially declare war, but actually, the conflict here has been going on for a long time. The Iran-Israel conflict has entered its third day. On the 15th, Israel targeted the entire territory of Iran. Basically, all of Iran is now on high alert. They launched attacks on 80 targets, starting from the capital, Tehran. The straight-line distance from Tehran to Tel Aviv is 1,500 kilometers, and the strikes reached all the way to Mashhad, a major city in the northeast, 2,300 kilometers to the east. So even if you move those things farther away, it's useless. Israel still managed to hit them. Israel hit an Iranian aerial refueling aircraft at Mashhad airport. Oh, and Iran only has 2 or 3 aerial refueling planes in total. This was the longest-range strike since the large-scale air raid on the 13th, and it shows that their strike capability now covers the entire territory of Iran. The Israel Defense Forces, have launched a new series of attacks on dozens of surface-to-surface missile sites in western Iran, to the west and just west of Tehran. Because, basically, the intention is to stop Iran from retaliating with missiles. So, what about those nuclear warheads, those surface-to-surface missiles, and those backup facilities? Of course, many of these surface-to-surface missiles are mobile, meaning they're mounted on trucks. If they hide, it becomes very difficult to strike them. But usually, they have a base for things like maintenance and repairs. These bases have been destroyed, and they continue to strike military targets and nuclear-related sites in Tehran. Like I said, if you're going to fight, you should hit the radars first, and then target the command centers. And now, of course, it's kind of like that Tom Cruise movie, where they strike the uranium enrichment centers and the places where enriched uranium is stored. It's just like that scene from the movie. And then an F-14 comes out. Nowadays, only Iran still has F-14s. Everyone else has retired them. On the 15th, Israel issued its first emergency evacuation warning in Persian to Iranian civilians, telling people to evacuate, specifically, to leave areas near munitions factories and military support facilities, or else they could be killed. So even if you're not inside those facilities, but you're nearby, they're telling you to evacuate as well. Otherwise, sorry, if they hit the target, you might get caught in it too. Iran launched the operation on the 15th, codenamed the Rising Lion, the same as Israel. Iran's own operation was called True Promise Operation 3. I really promised to take revenge and fulfill my promise. In the 4th phase of the attack, they launched hundreds of various types of ballistic missiles at Israel. The targets of these attacks were things like command centers and military facilities. Is it possible that they would attack residential areas? It's not very likely. They might attack civilian facilities or infrastructure, but attacking residential homes isn't really worth it. Why is that? Because each missile costs tens of millions. If you use it to hit a residential building and kill a dozen people, what's the point? It's basically pointless, right? Iranian missiles did hit several residential areas in Tel Aviv. Thick smoke was billowing over downtown Haifa, and many cars caught fire. The outer wall of a residential building was blown open by the explosion. In Israel, it's strictly forbidden for people to upload these videos, so the extent of the damage is actually unknown to us. But there were indeed many places that were hit. When you look at the night view of Tel Aviv and Haifa, it almost looks like fireworks going off. Those missiles were coming down, and the air defense missiles were being launched up. Some of them, one in particular, came down really fast and hit the target. That was a hypersonic missile. Part of Israel was also hit. On the 15th, Roy Tamiyahu told Fox News that Israel had already destroyed the main part of Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. This can actually be verified as true using satellite images. This is Iran's main uranium enrichment plant, as you know, the Natanz nuclear facility, where they refine pure uranium. They mostly use centrifuges to refine uranium, and those have been destroyed. The International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed that the above-ground potassium enrichment facilities at Natanz, in central Iran, have been completely destroyed. This facility was used for experiments with 60% enriched potassium. When we refine 60% enriched potassium, we use all sorts of experiments. You know, if you use so-called field-grade uranium, its purity is below 5%, but for weapon-grade, it needs to be above 90% because it has to pass a critical point for the atoms, the nuclei, to trigger a chain reaction. The Wall Street Journal quoted Israeli officials saying that the underground potassium enrichment facility in Natanz, central Iran, imploded due to an Israeli attack. It finally blew up. I believe this facility has been destroyed, and everything above ground has been wiped out. But how much was moved underground, we don't know. We just don't know. According to Iran International, there was a massive explosion at the Frido underground potassium enrichment facility on the 16th, accompanied by an earthquake, intense tremors, a huge fire, and thick smoke filling the air. The scene was chaotic. As you know, there were a lot of machines and fuel inside, and in the end, this facility was blown up. The things above ground were completely destroyed. The explosion at the Frido facility occurred in the Kuzuk-Nura area, which is a strategic military zone not far from the Frido underground facility. There is intense outside concern about whether it might be attacked. On Saturday, Israel attacked 2 fuel depots near Tehran that support military infrastructure. Hitting the fuel depots is secondary at this point. This has already happened. They also struck the headquarters of Iran's Ministry of Defense and other nuclear command centers. The New York Times interviewed 6 senior Iranian officials, including 2 from the Revolutionary Guard. Why did senior Iranian officials make such a major mistake? Let me explain it to you first. They believed that the U.S. had given a final deadline for negotiations with Iran, some talks on the 10th or so. They thought that if the negotiations failed, Israel would immediately bomb them. But who would have thought that Israel would bomb them even before the talks took place? So they made a misjudgment. They even thought that Israel was making some military moves just to lure them into a meeting, while Mossad agents were watching them. They all gathered there for the meeting, and then Israel attacked, taking them out first. This time, Israel deployed spies who had been undercover in Iran for a long time. In fact, some of the killings weren't done by missiles, but by these commando teams made up of such operatives. The top Iranian leaders spent over a week planning, thinking that if the negotiations broke down, then Israel might attack. But they made a fatal mistake. They didn't expect Israel to strike before the talks even started. This reminds me of a tactic used by Li Jing, the military genius of the Tang dynasty. He would agree to peace and then send his troops to launch a surprise attack. That's exactly what happened here. The emperor agreed to peace with the other side, then sent troops for a surprise attack, something you'd never expect. Iranian leaders thought Israel's threats of attack were just propaganda, just a way to put pressure on Tehran, to help the U.S. pressure Tehran, hoping Iran would make concessions at the nuclear talks. Even if there was going to be an attack, they figured it would only happen after the talks, right? But no, they went all in and hit you first. Because they were too complacent, the preventive measures that had been prepared were never put in place. Several senior military commanders secretly planned to enter the safe zone, but they should have gone somewhere untraceable. They also violated the security directive that prohibited gathering in the same location. As a result, when a group of them met, disaster struck all at once. That's basically what happened. After the incident, Iranian officials shared with the New York Times that they angrily blamed each other, asking, where was our air defense system? How could Israel come and go as they pleased and kill senior commanders? Of course, military prestige is important, but it also involves having spies everywhere. Now, many of the people helping with espionage are Indians working in Iran. The head of intelligence for Iran's Revolutionary Guard, Kazemi, and his deputy, Hassan Mohajik, were killed in the airstrike on the 15th. The Iranian military's top brass were wiped out in a precision strike, senior officers from the chief of staff down, including the commander-in-chief of the Revolutionary Guard, were all killed while attending a meeting. Reuters quoted two informed U.S. officials as saying that Israel proposed a credible plan to assassinate Supreme Leader Khamenei to the Americans. But Trump was unwilling to go along with it. U.S. officials said that after the White House was briefed, Trump opposed killing Khamenei. What would happen if Khamenei were killed? Does Khamenei really have such tight control over everything? If he were killed, would the Iranian people submit? Or would they become even angrier? This is an extremely difficult political decision. There are concerns that killing Khamenei could very well trigger an all-out war. Would the Iranian people become completely enraged? I've seen some interviews from Iran where Iranians said, I used to be against making nuclear weapons, but now I support making them. After this attack, it's very likely that the whole country will be swept up in anti-Israel and anti-American sentiment, and they won't just submit. It's like how Russia has been fighting Ukraine up to now, and the Ukrainians still haven't given in. So if you bomb like this, killing not civilians but high-ranking officials, what do you think will happen? People will have a surge of patriotic feelings. Even those opposition parties originally felt they needed to rally around the government, making it even stronger. That official said, are Iranians killing Americans right now? No, they're not killing Americans, are they? We won't consider you. Going out to kill anyone, don't kill Khamenei. When Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was interviewed by Fox News, he did not directly respond to questions about the assassination plan. We will do what we should do, and the United States knows what is most beneficial for them. Right now, the American red line is not to kill Khamenei. If Khamenei were killed, no one knows where the situation in Iran would go, or just how angry the Iranian people would become. Besides Khamenei, who else is there? The president. As for the president, he's a moderate, so basically anyone could kill him. According to the Associated Press, the White House is making every effort to prevent Israeli military action against Iran's nuclear program from escalating into a larger regional conflict. So, what does that mean? If Iran wants to attack Israel, it would first have to go through Jordan. Can Jordan withstand an attack from Iran? Jordan has bought some American military equipment, but I don't think they'd be able to hold out. If Iran were to occupy Jordan, that would be a huge problem. With Iran's population of 90 million, they could then advance over land to attack Israel, and that would be a major issue for Israel. No airstrike would be able to stop these ground forces from infiltrating and attacking. The United States believes that assassinating Khamenei would only add fuel to the fire. Trump also acknowledged that there are currently many calls and meetings underway, and that Israel and Iran will soon achieve peace. In another video, I explained to you why peace will come so soon. It's because they're running out of ammunition. Since this is a remote conflict, not a ground war like the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which can drag on for a long time. Here, both sides are just throwing around these very expensive weapons. It's like both sides are attacking each other with Rolex watches. That's a huge problem. The amount of money being burned is just unbelievable. Even the United States doesn't have enough ammunition to fight a war for more than 2 weeks, let alone together with Israel. In this kind of war, a single air defense missile costs several million US dollars. Usually, when the other side fires one missile, you use 2 to intercept it, so that's about 10 million US dollars spent. So, there isn't a large stockpile of these weapons. You just can't afford to keep that many on hand. According to Iranian health statistics, it's estimated that 224 people have died and 1,481 have been injured. Of course, these numbers are just rough estimates. Just look at the Russia-Ukraine war. The spokesperson said that 90% of the casualties are civilians, including 70% women and children. Israel said that if Iran's attack causes civilian deaths on their side, it would be a huge problem. So what about when Israel's attacks cause civilian deaths in Iran? Actually, let me say again about the situation in Gaza. If you're fighting a war, of course there will be civilian casualties. It's hard to avoid. This is what's called collateral damage. But you have to do your best to control collateral damage. You need to prove that you made every effort to minimize civilian deaths and that it was truly unavoidable. Otherwise, it's not acceptable. Dropping dumb bombs, this is what people don't understand about Gaza. Why use a 1-ton bomb to destroy an entire building? That's bound to kill a lot of innocent people. Why not use precision weapons to target your enemies? Let me ask you. 13 Israelis were killed, 380 were injured, and at least 10 people died from 15 Iranian missile attacks, with 60 buildings completely destroyed. Don't worry, everyone. Up to now, most Ukrainian cities are still intact. If you rely solely on aerial bombing, you'd have to go back to World War II, when the Allies used 10,000 planes to attack Germany and Japan. That's the kind of scale needed to completely destroy a city. If you bomb the ground like sweeping the floor, these so-called precision strikes are still, in reality, utterly ruthless, always mercilessly ruthless. Netanyahu stood on the balcony of an apartment hit by missile attacks and warned Iran that deliberately killing civilian women would come at a very heavy price. So I have to ask him, fine, but in Gaza, hasn't there also been deliberate killing of civilians? I've already talked about Gaza, and then someone asks, so who down there is Pakistani? Of course, are there Pakistanis or Hamas fighters attacking? 1,200 people died in Israel, but Israel's counterattack killed 54,000 people. I'm asking, and you should ask too, in good conscience, did all 54,000 of those people deserve to die? Some of them included babies who had just been born. Did Israel use the utmost patience and the most precise bombs to avoid harming innocent people? That's the issue. That's the real issue. Emphasizing this, the largest military opponent since 1973, the Iranians, have a very high birth rate. Arabs too, and not just Muslims. The biggest issue is that they have children quickly. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iran lost only a few million people, killed several million, but now their population has grown to 80 million. Let me ask you, are you scared? The Iranian foreign minister said there is concrete evidence that the U.S. military provided support during Israel's attack. Without U.S. military intelligence and satellite positioning, Israel's attack couldn't have been this precise. U.S. President Donald Trump should be considered an accomplice. The 6th round of U.S.-Israel nuclear talks was originally scheduled to be held in Oman on the 15th. They thought the attack would happen at least on the 18th after a few days of talks, but it actually happened on the 14th. They were meeting to discuss countermeasures, but ended up getting caught all at once. Iran refused to negotiate a ceasefire with the U.S. while Israel's attacks continued, saying, if you keep attacking, I won't negotiate. The French Prime Minister expressed hope that the G7 meeting in Canada would reach a consensus. But really, it all depends on the U.S. It all comes down to the U.S. Leaders from multiple countries have called for easing tensions through diplomatic negotiations. I think even if they fight for another week or two, they'll have to wrap it up. Neither side can afford to keep fighting. In the end, it just fizzles out. That's how it is. Of course, Iran's nuclear facilities have suffered significant damage, but is it really over? No, if you don't send in infantry, there's no way to really take control. You have to have an infantry invasion, an army invasion, but no one has the guts to send ground troops into a country as populous as Iran. That would be a suicide mission. It would be unbelievably costly. Look at how badly things went in Afghanistan and Iraq, and now you want to take on Iran. Seriously,